Councilmember Bunker,
He's still muted up there.
Still muted.
Oh, she can.
You can ask her
Maybe
to
her
unmute.
co-host as well.
Oh, I see what you were doing.
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully we can.
That's her turn. Mute. That's the start video.
I'm here.
Councilmember Styler,
Here.
Councilmember McLeod,
Here.
and Councilmember Clinton.
Here.
And I'm Mayor Glaze. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Do the flag.
It's behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then for the Texas flag, it's right there. Mike, right behind you.
Got it.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. And then if you would remain standing for the invocation. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, Lord God, we just praise you, Heavenly Father, for this beautiful city of ours. And Lord God, we just ask that you be with us for every decision and everything that we say. We just ask for your guidance in everything that we do. And we just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, then we'll start with public comments. We had one from Carol Devaney that was via email.
It's either.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Related public comment for the Parks Advisory meeting on August 17th. The Parks Advisory Board met on August 10th, 2022. On our agenda is a discussion of signage for city parks. We understand that the River Advisory Board is also looking to make recommendations to the city council for signage in the city parks. As we are in the midst of discussion for this topic, we thought the River Advisory Board might like to work together with the Parks Advisory to discuss our concerns and come together with a joint recommendation from both advisory boards to the city council. We felt it would be better at this time to work with just the two boards and not council, because this would be a first joint meeting and we like to meet and feel free to talk together comfortably before any recommendations are made. Due to several Parks Advisory members working during the day, we would like for you to consider an evening meeting after 5:30. It is our hope that you'll view a joint meeting hosted by the Parks Advisory Board favorably, and we can meet soon. Thank you for your time.
Okay. And our next public comment is by Terry Hendricks.
I prepared something to read, but I don't think I feel like reading. So real quick, I'm just gonna pass this out so that you'll have this. If I read it, I'll still ramble.
Thank
So
you.
you got 3 minutes.
I know, but
Use your 3 minutes.
I don't want to ramble. I just want to just say that I moved here in 2017. I started performing and doing music in 1990. In 1989, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And in 2020, I was diagnosed with spasmodic dysphonia and essential local tremor. Essential local tremor is not essential to my life. I have no idea what they call that. So if at any given time in this conversation I sound like a donkey, it's okay. I have to, I know what they sound like. Just but I'm undaunted and fearlessly challenging ahead in spite of what's happened with my own health. In 2012, I started a nonprofit. It's called Onion Universe. It's a 501c3. We turned 10 this year. And we have a long history of workshops and festivals and public concerts. And we strive to make things to where things are affordable for people to come. So most of our events are free. And most of our workshops are scholarship-based where people don't have to pay. In 2020, we pivoted and started a whole online addition to what we do, which has really been great because people from all over the world can attend a workshop and they don't have to come to Martinville, Texas for that workshop. Tammy Fest is something that will happen. It is happening October 7th through 9th, which is what your flyer is about. The total cost of the workshop is going to be a little bit above $6,950, but it takes course over 3 days. And I am seeking funds from the city of $5,000 to help underwrite that. Because if we pay that entire nut out of our budget, we can do it, but then it can hamper my abilities to promote the scholarships and all the other things that we do, like our free concert series that will happen starting up in October of this year. So if you look up terryhendricks.com, I have a really long history of doing what I do. And that budget, when you think about entertainment, that's a big budget. But you get what you pay for. And so for instance, on Friday night, I have the Whitlock Collections that's going to come here. I'm part of the Whitlock Collections with Texas State. And then 2 of the other artists booked at that. I'm not going to be paid for my part on this, but 2 of the artists are part of the Whitlock Collections as well, and they'll be here. And that's as cheap as I can get them. They usually make a lot more than that. So everyone that I have booked, they usually cost more. So I know what they should make because I know what their draw is. And so when it comes to tourism in our town, it's important to me. And so at my website, if you look up onionuniverse.org, you'll see that there's a whole section I filled for Play and Stay because I bought my property in Martindale. I'm not in the city limits from right off 1979, and I bought that property in 2017. And I would have to say that 99% of our attendees are from out of town. And so the Play and Stay aspect of it is so that I got tired of rounding up Airbnbs for people and rounding up Hip Camp and rounding it. So I'm trying to make one central place where people can literally come here and have a place to stay and take one of the workshops. So Tammy Fest is going to happen whether I have help from the city, because I know budgets are tight. And I know by now you might have your dollars spoken for. It's happening regardless. As far as, well, how are you going to get 300 people here? Well, if I can get that street blocked off to where I don't have to worry about kids, because we are going to have a lot of kids. I come with a lot of kids that come to our program. I don't want anyone getting hurt. So my main request is I need to block the street off just October 8th, because it's family friendly. So every artist booked, they don't have a pipe mouth. We don't have to worry about that. And they're all solid to make this a family friendly event. So it'll be from 6 to 10 on October 8th. And the thing's booked and contracted. So you're looking at hard costs. I don't have the cost of what the toilets are going to be. And I don't have the cost of what our supplemental entrance would be, because I do think that we should have that on. Even though we're not selling alcohol, I still think in today's times, I would feel better, as would our board, if we had additional insurance just for the October 8th event, because we're probably looking at 300 people, and most of them may be out of towners.
So your time is up.
Okay,
And we have the next person,
thanks, Melissa.
Nicholas.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For tip,
I don't know how you say your name.
Oh,
Michelle Rambeau.
Michelle.
Okay, so I'm Michelle Rambeau. I live here in Martindale. I am a huge fan of the OYOU. I've seen what it's done to transform lives, and I'd like to cede my 3 minutes or 2.75 minutes now to you.
okay, great. Transport. We transform lives through music and the creative arts, and we empower people. We work with people with disabilities, which is something that I take pride in. We specialize in people that are doing nonverbal using music and creative arts to help them express what they normally can't because of social and mobility issues. So when we host this event, that's why the street has to be blocked off. It has to be completely handicap accessible. I can't have an event and have people that are in a wheelchair not be able to get to it. It also needs to be free because a lot of our people don't have funds. So Saturday's free. Friday's not. Friday's ticketed, and that will be sold through my email list. And all profit goes to the OIOU, which is the nonprofit. So I know I'm under my 3 minutes. So is there any questions? All right, I tried to work out every little detail. Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Ask.
Didn't you once have a Tammy Fest here?
I did. Tammy Fest happened in 2019, and it was really, really hot. And it was in Carlton's building before the food tour came, and it was really, really, really hot. But we still pulled it off, and we had probably a little over 200 people. And we have Carlton's building secured. We have the side building secured for Friday, which is VIP ticketed at $35 a ticket. Again, we can never have a higher ticket than 35. Once we do that, then we alienate our fan base is penalized. So we feel like that's a good ticket price, but the rest of the events are free. Any other questions? Come on, give me something. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Wendy Jones.
I was gonna give my minutes to her as well, but we'd really like to use the hotel motel tax for this, because it is heads and beds, people will be coming, 75% of our fan base comes from out of town. So I think it's really important to be able to utilize those funds for something that's a local, a nonprofit, like she's near and dear to so many people and really helps a lot of people in the world. And so that's my few minutes.
Come talk to us 10 o'clock on Monday.
Oh, come back?
Yeah, just talk to us.
Okay, got it. 10
Okay.
o'clock on Monday. I'm here.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Matthew McGovern.
Yes. Something
Yeah,
more
look
sober. So my name is Matthew McGovern. I'm in charge of the River Committee. Just want to give you guys an update that we did file actually Joy did, to the TCEQ regarding the land upstream of the Skull. And they actually came out on August the 5th. The investigators arrived at the site approximately 11 o'clock. They observed a civilized rock construction entrance, silt fence along the perimeter of the property. And the silt fence was damaged along most of the western perimeter and several places along the bank of San Francisco River. The damaged silt fence would be called a violation. So there is a violation that was filed against the property. For failure to maintain effective operating controls, the upslope to the San Francisco did not have any temporary stabilization, which was the issue that we discussed before. And the concern is the River Committee repeatedly is that there is no stabilization. So we get any type of good rain, all that, as nice as it is, they put a lot of dirt there. There's no way for it to stay there. So it's non-functional. There is a letter that was actually sent out today for the violation. I don't need to go over the whole thing. I will copy you guys on this later, but I just want to give at least the big highlights regarding it. They were there for about an hour. They've already talked to Mr. Chapa about it. There also was an issue with regard to records not being on site. There was several records that were not actually on the site, which I was very confused by. And there was a violation with regard to that as well. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to move on to a presentation by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation for ADA compliance. And so I would like to introduce Marcia Boudreau. Am I saying that right?
It's pretty darn close. That's good job. Right. So share my screen. Well, about now.
Your presentation.
Right. I gotta find, because I want to share it for the TV, right?
You're sharing the screen to the Zoom, so this the people on Zoom will be able to
Right.
see this. So
You're sharing your desktop.
So not on Zoom yet.
Not
So
on
if you
Zoom.
Put on, do you mind if I drive?
Oh, please drive. So go here, right?
Yeah,
And then share.
do this one here,
Well, that's going to share.
the presentation.
Okay. But I wanted to share that screen. So
It will.
too. It will.
You can do this.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. So what are they saying?
So this is what they're seeing here.
Yeah, that's not the one we wanted to see.
Let's do this then.
Just stop share. And then share
No.
screen. It just needed a redo.
There we go.
We're good? Okay, good deal. Okay. Take my glasses off because I'm getting old. So hi, my name is Marcia Godo and I work for the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation in the Elimination of Architectural Barriers Program under Regulatory Program Management Division. It's not sliding forward. I wonder why.
Do you have two presentations open by any
I
chance?
don't. Technical difficulties, of course.
But if you,
Oh, I see what's happening. You're on. Oh, no.
is that set up as a screen mirror or a second?
Screen.
Hit your mouse, drag it up to your second screen and hit and click on it, then enter. It should advance the slide for you. There you go.
Oh, okay. Click on it. There we go. Great minds. Thank y'all. So TDLR monitors and regulates many different licensed individuals, anywhere from electricians, combative sports, and cosmetology to podiatrists, water well drillers, and tow trucks. We're what with the capital calls an umbrella agency, so lots of different things. What I came here tonight to present is about the Elimination of Architectural Barriers program and how it uses the Texas accessibility standards to regulate accessibility. The steps that the public needs to take those to help ensure accessibility and what local municipalities can roll to helping enforce those requirements. So what is Elimination of Architectural Barriers program? It's the regulation of construction projects in the state of Texas to ensure compliance with the Texas accessibility standards. In layman's terms, it's the state's version of the ADA. So when you go and say, we regulate the ADA, that's not what we really do. We regulate the Texas accessibility standards, which is very close. The difference between us and the ADA is that we're a construction law. So any new construction, renovation, or alterations done to the subject facilities would be required to comply with the Texas accessibility standards. No construction, then we rely on the ADA for compliance. TDLR does this in several different ways. We provide technical assistance through email. Sorry, I skipped one. Through emails, presentations, and websites. Our website, we regulate and audit what is called a registered accessibility specialist, or a RAS, and I'll explain what that is a little bit later. We send lots of notices to owners regarding compliance requirements, and TDLR also investigates any complaints regarding accessibility that we receive to make sure that it is compliant. So a little bit of background on the Elimination of Architectural Barriers program in Texas. We started in 1970 with a legislator named Chris Cull. He found that while he was going to work, he couldn't access certain parts in the Capitol. And so he wanted to make sure that he was able to access those. So if you notice, 1970 predates ADA, which goes to show that it's better in Texas, right? So 1970, the program started with construction projects that were new, renovations or modifications to publicly owned facilities. Examples of this would be the Capitol, city halls, just like this one, schools, and parks. So those had to be accessible starting in 1970. Basically anything that the tax dollars pay for had to be accessible. And then in 1972, legislation added what are called state lease facilities. So these are privately owned facilities that the state actually leases space out of. There were a couple years there that legislation, or after a couple of years in legislation, stretched out its requirements for accessibility to construction projects that are privately owned. So those are the ones you commonly think about in 1992. These are things like stores, gas stations, restaurants, and clubs. We refer to these as public accommodations. They're places that the public can go and interact. And then one short year later, we added in 1993 commercial facilities. Those are facilities that affect commerce and are typically mainly employee work areas. The biggest example we have here in this area would be Tesla's factory that just went in. That's required to be accessible, even though it's mainly employees only. So as I mentioned, this all started with a Texas Government Code 469, and it states that our job is to ensure that each building or facility is accessible and functional for persons with disabilities. That's my job. Most of the time, people think that just means mobility impairments, the wheelchairs and things like that, but Texas accessibility standards actually have requirements for all types of disabilities. They take into account sight impairments, hearing impairments, height, even age. There's some requirements for water fountains for people who have difficulty bending over. So getting back to where is accessibility required? Buildings and facilities are required to comply with the Texas accessibility standards when there is construction, renovation, or a subject building or facility. These are the public buildings that we discussed. They include buildings that are temporary basis, so like a porta potty at a park, or for emergency basis. So you have a flooding, the river here floods a little bit, and you have to move your city hall so you can still function as a city. Those are required to comply as well. The accessibility is required for projects that are public accommodations like we talked about. So the cafe here down the road would be required to comply, and also commercial facilities like an Amazon distribution center. This is one step, or sorry, we even require accessibility for religious facilities, so churches, which is one step beyond the feds because the feds exempt it completely. So we do require accessibility for religious organization facilities. Now, this is usually when people ask me, what do you mean by construction or renovations? This can be either a major construction project like an overhaul of a tenant space, or something minor like installation of a border around a playground area to keep the mulch in. So it can be very small projects, but it still has to be accessible. What it doesn't include are regular maintenance to facilities. So the best example I have of that would be at a movie theater. You have worn cushions, right? The fabric is on the chairs is worn, and so you want to go and fix that so it maintain the chairs, right? That's considered a maintenance project, not a renovation project. However, if you decide to upgrade those chairs to the big sound HD sound chairs, that's an upgrade, and so that's a renovation project. Now the movie theater has to comply. I mentioned there's some areas that we don't require accessibility. That would be things like federal property. So your post office does not have to comply with Texas accessibility standards. Areas within a religious organization facility that are primarily for religious rituals, so like the baptistry, that would be exempted from compliance. But that only exempts the areas of religious rituals. So the daycare area in your church, that's not a religious ritual, so that one's going to have to be accessible. And then we also have van parking in garages that were built before 1940 or before 1994, and as well as residential facilities like homes, condos, the residents of apartments. Those do not have to follow the Texas accessibility standards. This is not many facilities that are exempted from compliance with the Texas accessibility standards, but if you're ever in doubt or feel free to reach out to us at email, or you can look up the required facilities on our website. The Texas accessibility standards list out requirements for facilities by element. So for example, it would detail out toilet room requirements, the sink in the toilet room, the toilet location, the height, things like that. That's what it lists out in the Texas accessibility standards. Currently, we work with the 2012 edition of the Texas accessibility standards. And this edition is almost a mirror of the 2010 accessibility guidelines through the feds, with some improvements because we are construction law instead of a civil law. So it changes a little bit there. Texas actually even goes a step further and requires by law that construction projects with a construction cost of $50,000 or more be registered with TDLR, then have a plan review completed and followed by an inspection after the completion of construction. Plan review and inspection can be performed by a licensed registered accessibility specialist, and these are individuals that TDLR licenses. We require that those individuals pass a test regarding their knowledge on the Texas accessibility standards and take continuing education annually. So everyone has to do their part to ensure construction projects are accessible. Chapter 469 of the state code says the owner of a building or facility is the ultimate responsible party to ensure that their facility is compliant with the Texas accessibility standards. This person, company, government entity, or other entity that holds title to the facility. So that's who we consider to be the owner. We don't consider the owner or the responsible party to be the tenant or a property management company, anyone or anyone else other than the entity or person that holds title to the facility. That's why all our notices end up going to owners. We won't be sending them to tenants. If the tenant has a agreement with their facility owner, we're going to go to the owner. It's between the tenant and the owner on those requirements if they have an agreement. In our laws, the owner is responsible for registering the project with TDLR, submitting construction documents to the RAS or registered accessibility specialist, paying any fees or penalties, and ensuring the project gets inspected. Projects are registered with TDLR in the Texas Architectural Barriers online system. It's our new fancy database. The owner can log in and enter all project information, and then they'll pay a $175 filing fee. $300 if it is a late registration, meaning that your construction's already completed and you got caught not registering it. They will immediately be issued a project number, and the system will provide them with reminders regarding the required plan review and inspection that need to be completed. The Texas Architectural Barriers online system, or what we call TABS, can be found on our website. So we've provided the link, and will require the user to create a login. Upon registration of their project, the owner will be asked to start the process by selecting a registered accessibility specialist, which we also have a link on the registration, and they can find a list of local ones in this area. Once registered, the next step is to get the RAS to perform the plan review of the construction project. They must take place, this has to take place prior to the inspection, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. So you've got the late registration, you still have to have a plan review even though it's already built. Once the RAS is hired, they'll review the submitted construction documents and let the owner know their findings. Ideally, the plan review should happen prior to construction so that in case they find anything that's wrong, they can let the owner know. It's a good idea when designing the facilities or buildings to keep in mind the concept of universal design. It allows all parties to be accessible, to have accessibility to the facility. The next step is the inspection of the facility, and that will need to happen once construction is 100% complete and before the first anniversary of the completion of construction. So if we finish a project today, we have 1 year to get that inspection done. TDLR does not prevent the certificate of occupancy from being issued, and so the facility could possibly be occupied at the time of inspection. The RAS will inspect the facility, and should no violations be found of the Texas accessibility standards, they'll issue a letter of approval to the owner. Should the inspection find violations, the RAS will notify the owner of their violations, where they're found, and what specific violations of the standards they are. And the owner will be given some time to get those violations corrected. Once corrected, they will notify the RAS, and then the RAS will issue an approval letter at that point. So what responsibilities does the city of Martindale have to ensuring construction projects in their city are accessible? Well, first, all city construction projects need to be in compliance with the Texas accessibility standards. Remember 1970, all publicly owned facilities have to be accessible. But there's an added requirement that political subdivisions cannot accept an application for building construction permits unless the project's been registered. So I did do some research before, and a city of Martindale has a total of 6 projects registered with TDLR. That's it. And so we need to help making sure that those projects get registered.
Not very big.
I know, but it's 6 projects in 20 years is still. Earlier, I mentioned that one of the ways TDLR ensures compliance is with our enforcement division. So let's go over how that works. Anyone can file a complaint with TDLR if they feel that there is a violation of the Texas accessibility standards. Unlike the Department of Justice that regulates the federal ADA requirements, those can only be pursued if it's a civil violation, meaning that the person that files it for the ADA has to have a disability. But anybody can, you do not have to have a disability in order to file a complaint with TDLR for a violation of TAS. If the complainant finds that they're a little uncomfortable giving their name, we do allow anonymous complaints to be filed as well. Filing a complaint is easy on the TDLR website. It's at the top right portion of the homepage. It says file a complaint. Once the complaint's received, we start our research. First 2 questions we'll ask is, when did the construction happen? And is this a subject facility that's listed in Administrative Code 6820? If no construction occurred, it would not be subject to compliance with the Texas accessibility standards. Even if we find that the project's not subject to compliance with TAS or Texas accessibility standards, it does not exempt them from compliance with the federal requirements. And then if the Department of Justice files a suit and requires the facility to get updated, that means they're going to start construction and then they have to comply with TAS. So it's kind of a catch. Also, you might want to notice that I didn't ask what cost when we were doing our research for our complaint. That's because if it's a subject facility, they did construction and it has to comply regardless of cost. The cost only factors in to determine if they have the added requirement to register the project with TDLR. So we like to say compliance begins at $1 for TAS. Should our enforcement division find that the facility is in violation, they can assess a penalty of up to $5,000 per day per violation. So as an example, if we have a gas station on the corner that doesn't have a compliant toilet room and their service counter is not high or not low enough, and they did a renovation a year ago, that's 365 days times 2 violations times $5,000. That's a $3 million fine. Plus, they still got to get it fixed. So it's a pretty scary number. Again, filing a complaint is done on the TDLR's website. And everyone can do their part to ensure accessibility in the state of Texas. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes,
We have a park, our parks over here.
yes, sir.
They're in the floodway.
Okay.
We have porta cans.
The
They're porta cans.
porta potties?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Handicap accessible.
and they're handicap accessible, like
Great.
you said. The problem is, I mean, we have stipulations these were FEMA buyout properties. And we can't put any kind of impervious cover in there, like concrete. By the feds, we're not allowed to put concrete. We can put road base or something like that.
Okay.
Or stone, but you can't put concrete. So the problem we could probably never put a restroom down there
Okay.
that would be permanent because it gets 20, 30 feet underwater. So my question is, would an ADA compliant porta potty be sufficient?
So yes, it is. If it is an accessible porta potty or porta can, as long as it's the accessible one, because you're providing a toilet, even if it is a porta potty, it does have to be accessible. So that's one of the things about the Texas accessibility standards. There's a lot of parts where it says if provided must comply. Nothing says you have to provide parking in the standards. There might be some in an international building code or other requirements, but nothing says you have to provide parking. But if you do provide it, there has to be accessible parking. Does that make sense?
Could you define accessible parking? Because I have been involved in the park myself in getting a gravel road from the highway, a firm gravel road constructed, and then a 25 parking space or 20 parking space gravel parking lot installed. The porta potty, I was thinking of moving over to the firm gravel base and then putting 2 handicap accessible signs on either side of the porta potty. Would I have to also include like the violation of the fine on that pole?
So there-
What other signage would I need?
Sure. So there are parking requirements. So in the standards themselves, there is a requirement to have the international symbol of accessibility, 60 inches up above the ground,
16 inches.
60 inches. The van accessible space has to be labeled. So that's the bigger one, or you have one of those big access aisles that's associated with it. And then there is a rule now. It's not even in the standards. It is a rule because a legislator decided they really wanted it in there. You have to have that towing sign there as well.
But the one problem we're gonna have, this is in a floodway, and the signs get blown out. I mean, if we go underwater, then you're littering the river. So I mean, I know we need to be ADA compliant, and we do have a porta can, and it's usually it's only daylight hours, so we're kind of limited. I mean, we can put, like you said, stone or something, but pavement. It's a real primitive park.
There is nothing in the standards that say that you have to have a concrete parking space.
But the signs
It needs
were,
to be a solid surface.
It does need to be solid, stable.
okay, it has
Crushed granite.
permeable, it has
Yeah.
to be, it has to be
Yeah.
pervious. But the sign issue is another problem, because if you have it too low or something, it's gonna get blown out and it's gonna be in the river. So
The way you can file for a variance, and when you file for the variance, my suggestion would be to include that FEMA requirement they're saying we can't do this. Just as the alternate standard set, because a lot of hospitals have that for bariatric, because we say you have to have a grab bar, and your toilet has to be so far from the
yeah,
wall, right? And they can't do that because of an alternate standard overrides it. So,
because what would happen in a flood, you'd have to get that porta can out of there.
right, so we would want to see where the FEMA code says,
It's pretty,
You're in.
it's pretty definite what,
that's what we would want to see,
but that would, you could get a variance based on the FEMA requirements. Okay,
based off on an alternate.
okay, thank you.
And then I had a question about outside here. We have some handicap signs, like there's a couple over here, there's one here, we have a ramp here. We have a library next door that does not have wheelchair accessibility in through the front door, but there is a handicap spot in the back. But right on the handicap sign, it says, tow away zone, library staff only, and all that. So I think that the space in the back is not wide enough to have van accessibility or such as that. So how could the city work with maybe improving the sidewalk in the front to allow handicap accessibility? And that may take funds to where we need a grant or some funds to help us with that. But I would like to see the library be handicap accessible through the front door.
Okay, and so when you start that construction to go and make it accessible, because remember, that was one of the first questions, is when was construction done? So if the library didn't do any construction, nothing got triggered with the task requirements. Again, that doesn't mean that they might not be a federal violation, but right now, if there was no construction, there's no requirements for task. So when you start construction to improve the entrance, that's when you would have to make that door, the hand.
The button you push down?
Yep, can't do those.
Have that.
I can't have anything that's tight, grasping, twisting, or pinching. Has to be the way a lever or something with a closed fist, something that someone has trouble, arthritis. They, right, absolutely. And when if you go and, there's no such thing as grandfathering in, not for tasks. No such thing as grandfathering.
So for now, then the best way would be just to go in through the back of the facility.
A lot
For
of
now.
places
I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but a lot of places have really nice back entrances. But because of like, especially in Texas with all of the art centers that are in old buildings, they have, but the secret is making it to where the people that have a disability can access it because they're aware. So it's really signs and creating that, so the entry in the back is easy to park.
Right.
And does that work?
We have,
under the-
well, we have a clause, we have a section in our standards that's what I refer to as the because we said so clause. It lists out all those civil things. You can't send somebody all the way to the back because they have a disability. You can't make them go around the corner and up the walk when everybody else can just take 3 steps and get there.
So it needs to get fixed. Basically, the old buildings that need to bring.
When you do
things down.
construction, then the task compliance would be triggered.
Okay.
So out in the front here, how can we allocate so much space towards, say, one handicap space? Because if it's van accessible, that's going to take up almost 3 spaces, and we have very limited parking in the front here. So what do you suggest us doing in this old antiquated sidewalk system we have and a narrow front here and all that?
I think that would take some time for me to kind of really look at the situation.
Yeah.
Because you're right, you've got a lot of space where it would have to have the associated access aisle and the parking space.
You'd have to go by the historic commission too.
What I would, so you have parking down here at the end, right? A little parking area at the end of the street.
That's privately owned
It's
land.
privately owned thing. Okay.
I have a comment. This is Jan Bunker.
Hi.
I'm city council on Zoom. And along these lines, do you know the regulations that the parking regulations requirements for the city and for commercial property?
I do not know what, I do not know which building codes would require and how many they would require. I do know that if you provide parking on the street or in the private lot, that some of it has to be accessible. Now, when you do construction, so right now you don't have anything striped out here, right?
No.
You didn't do construction, so the Texas accessibility standards aren't getting triggered yet. But it's when you do, so you really kind of have to have some, like you said, with these doors, there's a big step here. So when you decide, hey, we're going to make this better, you're going to have to make sure that there's maneuvering clearance there, that the door handle works, things like that, and you got to ramp up to it. So it's just going to take a lot of thought.
Yeah,
That's
it's,
the thing.
Don't say.
Don't make it better.
And this is recorded, isn't it? Dang it.
yeah, it's gonna have to be
Don't say
some
things.
cooperation
Right.
between the various people that own the buildings and the city, because there's conflict or whatever. So, you know, I think it would really be good if you could come again and assist us on.
Absolutely.
these things.
Absolutely. And again, we are available by email. My whole team answers that tech info email address. So if you just send questions to us, we are available, and we try to get answers within 24 hours. Try.
How
Get a
much,
lot of
this is Jan again on Zoom. So how much would it cost for you to come in and do an inspection for us to, tell us what we need?
TDLR doesn't do inspections, but we could work on scheduling something out where I could help just
With
advise,
recommendations?
right, with recommendations on how to comply. I could
Gotcha.
definitely do that.
Right.
And I don't mean to drag this all out, but what about handicap accessible bathrooms in public facilities?
Have to be accessible, yes. What's the question?
What if a public facility doesn't have a bathroom?
I don't require you to put a bathroom in it,
Okay.
but when you do put one in, it does have to be accessible. And that's 100% of your toilet rooms have to be accessible.
Do you happen to have parameters for the pit, for the proper pitch for wheelchair ramps or proper counter heights or accessibility?
We do have those requirements in the Texas accessibility standards. So,
Perfect. So you
yeah.
get a packet and see.
Mhm. Well, and we left a couple of brochures here that for permitting. So when people pick up for permits, We left
Okay.
some brochures on ways to register a project, how to find a RAS, filing a complaint, things like that. So they're,
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
and y'all are our first municipality that we're teaching. So if they work, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wheelchair, which in too many more years. I gotta go to the parks, and I gotta go to the restroom. Is my wheelchair going to be able to go that gravel to get to the restroom?
In the park?
Yeah.
It depends on the gravel. Yeah, it depends on the gravel. I don't think right now that the gravel that y'all have is compact enough. But there are several out there that are compact enough and just need a little bit of work.
Okay. Yeah,
How
well,
much a day? $5,000 a day?
The violations, it can be up to $5,000 per day per violation.
It's compacted. Tell them that's compacted.
yeah. Which park were you referring to that may not have compacted gravel?
This one over here,
Oh, the park right here? Okay, yes. Because that hasn't been done recently, but recently we have done the park down by the bridge, the
More of a
phase one.
recreational area.
I noticed the wheelchair is really good in road base.
Yeah, we got road
Really
based.
hard
Yeah.
time with gravel.
Most of it's road based.
The overland, crushed granite's the worst.
Crushed granite, okay.
But road base, it seems to have, it compacts and it works.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you.
very, very
Ew.
much.
I have one more question, if that's
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Sure, go ahead, Jan.
Yes. Have you had any formal complaints about Martindale, and can we have access to those complaints?
I'm not aware of any formal that have been filed. Anytime enforcement gets a complaint filed, they will come to my team and ask for our expertise, just to verify, so we'll ask those questions that we talked about.
Mhm.
So I don't have any, but you can, any documents that the state has are subject to open records, just like y'all's city documents. And so you can email open.records@tlr.texas.gov if you have any inquiries.
And just to state, our parks have road base. They're road based down there. So it's compacted. So we just did a park, so it's compacted. So just to clarify that. Right, Mr. Clinton?
Well, we could do a little more at.
Yeah, but it's
at Allen
compacted.
Bates Park.
It's compacted though.
Alternative recreation.
Yeah, it's compacted.
Access zone.
You compacted it.
Dot records
Not a park.
at TDLR.texas.
Okay.
Hey, thank you.
Very, very nice. We really appreciate your time.
Texas.
See you later, bye.
Take care. Thanks for coming.
Okay, we're gonna
This
move
one.
on to number 3, consent items. The court report is in your packet. And I would entertain a motion to approve it.
Is the judge, is he available?
You won't be able to make this.
Huh?
Not today.
I was just gonna ask a question. I mean, our revenues increased. I was just wondering if the tickets or how many, what kind of a inflow he's got, time period.
I can ask him to answer that question.
Huh?
I can ask him to answer.
I mean, like,
You can see there where
it's come up.
the new citation filings in terms of a number. That's one area where you can look at.
Take a look
this
at that.
report. So. On the new statistic, citation filings, geez.
Okay, I guess my question would be, that adds, I mean, there's a whole lot of money difference in those two. If you got that much more citations, should that,
I don't know, so one is citations filings, one is collected fines. I would not interpret those numbers as.
We need the judge.
one being the next. So that's just what our police department has filed with the court. Collected fines, those are prior citations that have been closed by payment of fine. And that's, so we don't know, the $5,290, when those citations were issued that resulted in that collection. Some of them could be a year or more old.
That'd be a good question to ask.
Possibly.
That'd be a good question to ask the judge. You know, that's, you know, I just like to kind of know how that system works. That's all. Okay.
Okay, who would like to make a motion
What was the,
to accept the report?
I make a motion that we accept the consent items as presented.
Okay, Jan has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Nick has seconded. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those approving, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And we will move on to reports for the city administrator.
Actually, for tonight, most of the things I was intending to report on, we've transitioned them into discussion and action. I will say, apologize in advance to the council members for the late addition of some, and also the public for the agenda packet missing some of the read ahead. So we'll make sure that gets updated and published for everybody. But there's nothing additional for me to report at this time, and we can get into the discussion on the different items.
Okay, then we'll move on to new business. The first item would be the draft of the city staff organizational chart.
Yeah, so under city ordinance, my authorities are to
Jared, could you
organize.
share your screen?
Yeah.
Tell her to stop yelling at us.
So she's fine. Keep me honest. So, here we go. Are you able to see it, Jen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So under city ordinance, part of my role and responsibilities to organize and the city staff. This is a proposed organizational chart for consideration by the city council. What this, the significant change on this chart, besides just formatting, is the modification of nominating a municipal secretary, our city clerk, to also be an assistant city administrator. The way that I would read this is you have the elected governing body. Those are identified in that light blue color, which consists of the mayor and the city council members. Under the city's organization as a general law type A city with a mayor council form of government, the mayor serves as the chief executive officer of the city. My role is under that's the mayor as a support, overseeing the administrative affairs of the city and coordinating the different departments and activities of the city staff. That is not to say that I have administrative control or operational control over the other municipal officers that are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the governing body, such as the chief of police. My role is not to tell the chief of police how to go police, or the municipal treasurer on how to do accounting, or the municipal attorney on how to, interpret law or anything like that. Instead, if there's an activity that crosses multiple departments, I serve more of a coordinating role with those. However, I am part-time, and so that creates some difficulties on a day-to-day basis. And so part of this organizational chart change in nominating or creating the position of assistant city administrator, in some ways dual hatting our municipal secretary, city clerk, is in recognition of what exists in a de facto sense on a day-to-day basis here at the city. Adrian is the most senior full-time administrative employee that we have in the city, and is the main point of contact for anybody who walks in, has a question regarding city affairs, and he has taken increased role and responsibilities when it comes to hiring decisions and coordinating and supervising the assistant city clerks for utilities, utility clerks, and other items that take place. And so that's where that is. The different departments are there as an organizational construct to identify a police department, financial department, a building and planning department, a utilities and public works department, a municipal court, and then a city attorney's office. The different colors associated with each of those roles represent whether that person or position is another officer of the city. I mean, that is appointed and confirmed by the mayor. That's what that dark yellow, golden color is. The lighter color, our city staff that's hired as a result. The one wrinkle in that is our building official is a city staff that is employed. However, the city council has taken the action to nominate that person to serve in that role, which has specific requirements in our ordinances regarding the roles and responsibilities of that job. The other areas, you'll see a dark salmon color. Those are where we have contracted for specific services that serve in the role of a municipal officer, like our city attorney and our municipal engineer, Steve Ramsey. And the distinction between what the role that he provides the city and that of our other engineering firm of Freeland and Turk is that as a municipal engineer, he is the reviewing authority for subdivision applications, platting requirements, and those things. On civil engineering projects, public works type projects, we leverage our contracts with Freeland and Turk, like we're doing with the Northwest River Road, or having studies done related to our wastewater treatment plant and other things. The items in gray, those are vacant positions or designations that are called for in our ordinances. You'll see an ordinance reference with the one exception of a utilities and public works director. If the city were to grow as an organizing construct, I would like to see eventually utilities and public works director oversee the wastewater services that are provided by our contractors and solid waste, and organize and oversee the billing aspects of our utility claims. So that's not a position that's called for in an ordinance, not a position that has been hired. Consider it an unfunded vacancy, if you will, for purposes of the org chart. But it's something there that I want to place as a organizing feature that for your consideration as we go forward. The other ones, the zoning administrator, city planner, historic preservation official, floodplain administrator, at different points of our ordinances, and as we would review those, we're not going to do that tonight, but if the position is vacant, as often delegated or designated, I should say, to either the building official or myself as a city administrator. And then within that space, there's a lot of workload. As we've previously discussed, we at one point had employed a zoning administrator in addition to our building official. That person is no longer with the city right now, but there's a lot of work to be done in that space. And so to push all that to our current building official would degrade his ability to do his code enforcement jobs that we have prioritized him to do. And in the meantime, myself has repicked up a lot of those zoning issues to a certain degree, and those development agreements and planning that comes up. And then likely Adrian, as space and time allows, would participate or take some responsibility at different stages on coordinating some of those items as it may come up. But nothing's been delegated to this point on that. So
if the city were to hire a financial planner, would you
Yeah, so, yeah, if we had a financial planner hired, I would view that as a salmon or a kind of that light pink color as a contracted service provider within our financial department, supporting Dwayne and then also advising the city council.
Couldn't you just have consultants for a lot of these positions, like a temporary consultant for financial planner?
Yeah.
Floodplain administrator, having a Rolodex of that as we grow.
Yeah, and that's something that we discussed regarding the River Advisory Board's recommendations to hire a floodplain administrator that has gone through the certification process. And so the city's looking at possible avenues of contracting it out or having an interlocal agreement with other certified floodplain managers that might exist.
Mustang Ridge, some similar municipalities probably have the same situation. Talking to those municipalities probably has a beneficial outcome to that.
Yeah.
Because they probably don't have all those listed. Well, who knows?
Can we do an interlocal agreement with Caldwell County?
Yeah, that's probably the primary source that that would be interested in, just because that creates a lot of efficiencies. But if that turns out not to be feasible due to the requirements or what have you, that might come up as we try to establish that agreement. We've looked at other contracting opportunities.
Okay. What was the main point of you bringing this up tonight?
The main point is I would like to get approval for this organizational chart so that we have this set and then it's maintained. And any revisions would be further reviewed by city council going forward, so that city council knows how the city is organized, the public knows how this is organized. This can be published on our website. And then because there is a significant change regarding the responsibilities and roles of Adrian.
Yeah.
And layering on more work, more responsibility for him. Wanted to have this approved or denied prior to going into the next agenda item, which is relating to his employment agreement. So.
So with Adrian, how many hours are you putting in right now just as the city clerk?
So, I stay within that 40-hour limit.
Yeah.
However, sometimes.
Are you maxing that out though?
Yeah. So I flex my hours when I can. And so, for instance, this meeting, I arrived today at work this morning. I've been continuing on preparing agendas, also managing training this morning, and also getting stuff published towards the Lockhart Post. And so managing these different projects, tomorrow, for instance, I would have to flex my time.
Right. Come in later.
Council meetings, and workshops we may have, or even just deadlines that the city must meet.
Sure.
Yeah, he's been known to come in on a Saturday or two.
Is he helping you out already with all that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
So he's already pretty much at that title.
That's what I said. In effect, he's been doing this for a while. This is just a recognition of that role and importance that he plays in coordinating the day-to-day activities. Cool. Because I am only a part-time employee of the city and I don't have that capacity to be here Monday through Friday. And really what this would do is give him some of that authority and recognition of that authority.
Great, cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I want to make a motion to accept the draft city staff organizational chart submitted by Jared.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a question about the, real quick, Jan, the utility and public work department. How come, say, you didn't add Martindale Water Supply as our water provider on there?
So in a previous draft, I had our other service providers, which are in a bright pink color that located on the left of this chart, aligned to
I see them on the left.
different departments. As for example, the property tax assessor and collector, having that in our finance department. I think visually it could have implied that they somehow work for the city, which really isn't quite the case. We either have agreements or contracts or MOUs of some sort that identify them as a service provider, but because they're of such importance to the city, thought it was a value added to at least have them on our organizational chart to recognize, you know, someone looks at this and where's the fire department? How do we have a fire department? Yes, they're another service provider outside the city. Where's the water department? They're another service provider outside the city. So
And
I
then,
wrestled with that and came up with this.
no, that explains it. And then on the 4 gray positions, I mean, we did have planning and zoning and then we don't anymore. And our building official works minimal amount of time. Could the possibility exist of increasing his weekly allotment of time?
We're looking into that. We don't know yet if that'll be feasible, either on his end or the city's end to make that work out, but it's something that we're casually negotiating.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Hopefully,
I think
these
Jan-
let's get your
I think-
characterization.
I
Yeah,
think,
Jan, yeah.
Jan, I'm done.
Okay, where, I don't know if this is appropriate. Well, first, my first question, Jared, are you the municipal officer that was appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the governing body?
Yes.
Okay. Also, what about our committees? Shouldn't they be listed under an elected governing body?
The committees we would have on a separate chart. I mean, in the PowerPoint presentation, I do have a second slide that has it, but it's egregiously out of date. So I
Yeah.
did not
Want to show
present
that?
that
Okay,
tonight. So
okay, that's fine.
eventually we would list those and update those on our website. I think our website's, I don't know if those are up to date, but I know we've been.
No, they're not. I was
Yeah.
looking yesterday.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's a little bit out of date. I was going to talk to Adrian about that later on this week or like tomorrow. Okay. that's
Another
my-
example of that assistant city administrator.
Yes, okay. That's all I have.
Okay, hearing no more discussion. Mike made the motion. Sam, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Nick seconded. Jan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion carries. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item about the municipal secretary and assistant city administrator agreement.
Yeah, so this is an employment agreement contract. And unfortunately with the printers being down, what it does is it describes, and it uses the same format that the city has used for other municipal officers that have established contractual employment relationship with the city. It describes the duties as relating to those that are called for in our ordinances and that from time to time may be assigned, and describes the hours of work, basically that this would become an exempt or a position, and where Mr. Flores would agree to devote such time as is necessary to fulfill the performance of the roles and duties. However, he would be permitted to take time off and flex that time, similar to the salary arrangements that we have with our chief of police as an example, where he's not necessarily tied to the clock, but handles it from that. Yeah.
I have a comment from Kent. He says to let him know if there's any questions on this item.
This uses the same boilerplate language as other
Mhm.
compensation to be set by the city council, 46,800. I will tell you that, given the roles and responsibilities, that's much too. Personally, it's low, but it's what the city can afford today. And we can, if the city council wants to make adjustments to that, it may have some budgetary impacts in the next year, but it's something that we could consider. And then it describes regular salary increases, paid time off and benefits, and performance evaluations, and then remaining boilerplate language regarding,
So he'd be,
contractual jargon.
he'd be working 40-hour week based on that.
Where was the performance appraisal mentioned?
Performance evaluations at least once during each fiscal year
So we
with the city council and city administrator. And then each council member would be allowed to provide a written comment that could be part of those minutes if desired, but no, there's no requirement to reduce it to writing, but council members individually or collectively wanted to do something.
Do you have an hourly breakdown of that 46,000?
You can do it real quick.
It's roughly 2250. If I recall correctly.
Not enough.
Yep.
Looks great to me.
Motion?
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Agree to assign current municipal secretary Adrian Flores as municipal secretary / assistant city administrator.
We're looking for approval of the
Oh.
employment agreement.
I'm sorry. I thought we were, approval of the employment agreement for municipal secretary / assistant city administrator.
Okay.
All right, I second.
Mike beat you
Take it
to
to-
Yeah, that's fine.
it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
No.
Okay, so Nick made the motion. Jan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and Mike seconded it. So Sam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. Okay, so the next item is the zoning map change.
Yeah.
I guess. All right, so this is a get back from prior conversations that the city council had regarding a potential or proposed zoning change. The intent for this evening is to present the current and proposed future zoning maps that would be reflective of those changes that were previously discussed. Once city council says, yep, that's what we want, then we will take the remaining steps that are required to initiate that zoning change process, including the proper public notices, hearings, and the rest. So here's our current zoning map of what is at issue for this evening. Is this area within the mixed use, just labeled in that salmon color, which is mixed use zoning district along Highway 80 at the intersection of Highway 80, what was that, 1984? Yeah. Down by the other packet sack. So this is the current map. Here's the proposed. And that change, what you'll notice is what's changed from one to the next is the area south of Highway 80 is changed from a salmon color mixed use to the green color of a commercial C1 district.
Now, I voted against it the last city council, and I have concerns about commercial. For example, there was an example giving about a truck stop. Now, that was an example. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but that's my main concern, because if you look at that map, that's awfully close to the river. I mean, you got R1, you got residential, and then right there in that area, if you did put a truck stop, potentially it's an environmental issue for me being that close to the river with underground tanks, diesel, gas, whatever. That's my main concern, unless we had some kind of, I'm not against growth, but if you had like strip malls or something like that, but I think something like a truck stop would be a bad idea for the city. That's my personal opinion, being the traffic concerns and basically the environmental concerns being that close to the San Marcos River.
But tonight we're voting on the zoning map change.
Yeah, but that's the reason I'm telling you I'm not for it. So that's just my reasoning.
Yeah, look up, there's gotta be some code to look at. Are you pulling that up? Yeah.
So I'm pulling up the use table so that we all understand what's in the commercial district. So that's going to be the C1 column here. And as starting at the top, it starts with residential uses and would not have any residential uses except for bed and breakfast, boarding house, or loft apartments on a special use permit case by case basis.
Mhm.
Loft
boarding
apartments?
house. What's that?
Loft apartments are allowed in commercial.
With a special use permit. So there'd be a one each. It's not granted by right that anybody can do that. You would have to come in and ask for permission.
A variance or a spot
It's
permit.
basic spot permit, if you will, as a colloquial term. This would be a special use permit.
Special use permit.
Caretaker residence, et cetera. So when we get public and civic uses are permitted within the commercial area, retail, restaurants, and your specific concern was related to automotive issues there, if I understood. So in the automotive uses within the C1, there are some that would require special use permits, and where you see a P that is permitted by right. So you could have an auto parts store or an oil change location. And that's all that from automotive use that would be allowable without any special permit.
I
Now-
also love fuel service.
Isn't there
Yeah, a few,
gas stations there already?
fuel service requires a special use permit.
Yeah.
So in your concern about a gas station or something being located near the river within that newly created commercial zone, that would still go through a special use permitting process where they'd have to be granted permission under that procedure, which would include a public hearing, an application, a public hearing, and then a decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission, which now is currently made up of the city council. So if you did have a concern about a fuel station going in or something of that type, you would have further opportunity to weigh in on that specific issue if we were to ever receive an application for that use.
Yeah, most of those I don't have a problem with, but when it comes to chemicals, paints, lube, oil, that type of thing, even a car wash, being that close to the river, I have an issue with it. I mean, I just, most of that, I have no problem, like auto parts, retail, vehicle sales, probably not a problem, but when it comes to chemicals and fuel, it's an issue for me, being that close to the river. So I just wanted to make my point made. So.
Janet, do you have a question?
Where are the gas stations on that map right now? Do you know offhand?
Approximately here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
And then-
online you'll be able to see that here. I'll see if I can highlight approximately
No,
there,
that
and then
sounds
at the intersection of and it would not be shown on the map with the other gas station.
It's mixed use on the Lockhart gas station,
Yes.
sort of grandfathered in before the zoning was,
It
when
is.
was the zoning changed? In 2007?
2008, I believe.
Because I
Yeah,
think,
it's a continued non-conforming use is how that's handled. So if it were ever to burn down or if they were ever to 2008. if they were ever to burn down or make repairs, and that would change the building more than 50% of the building's value, they would have to conform with the zoning rules, in which case they likely would not be able to continue to operate that as a gas station and probably convert to being a simple convenience store or something like that.
What other properties, potential future properties, have the potential of wanting to see the change from mixed use to commercial in that area that we're describing?
This, I think, would solve most of it. There are some areas at the front of the Skyview subdivision that operate more similar to a commercial space. They have warehouses, and there's a house of worship that's over there nearby.
Well, I meant on the south side of, not the north side, the change that we're proposing. On the south side, I mean, like the Langzola property is along there, say, or where's the Langzola property in that section of the change?
So I believe that they are right here.
Yes.
So that would change, that would not change their status.
It would still be commercial.
Yeah. Well, on that, in the area that's shown on the map, their property line, if you look very, very closely, actually, this won't work for me. Right along Northwest River Road, there's a sliver of R1 that extends to a broader portion of the property along Northwest River Road, because that line is marked by, I think it's 300 feet from the center line of Highway 80. And so most of that property is within that commercial area currently.
Okay.
There's a small portion of that's R1. But in any event, that property or that potential for development is not impacted by this zoning change proposal.
So currently there, we have a trailer park in Indian Court Trailer Park there. We have the residential home where they make cakes, and we have Jack Mudd's place. Those are the only current residential uses.
I believe there's also a residence across the street from the River Bend housing community. That would switch from a residential zone to, or mixed use zone to a commercial zone where that's currently used as a residence. Just before you get to just after Hermanos, just before.
On that same side as Hermanos and the Hackensack?
So there's a site there that's was a house on it too. That's not, nothing's been done on it.
Okay.
There's people in there in the last.
Mike, would you compromise from changing with that C1? What does that say? C1?
Right here.
Yeah, from there down, creating that. We don't really want that though. We want continuation, huh?
I would recommend that, because the most economically beneficial use of that space is likely going to be a commercial use.
Yeah.
A mixed use zone is intended to be more of a pedestrian friendly environment,
Right.
where you're commingling residential and
Right.
commercial and creating kind of an ecosystem, a vibrant ecosystem. So like
Go ahead.
downtown is an area, once we have those loft apartments in and the other nearby houses, it's like more of a classic mixed use zone. It'd be very difficult to do that on the edge of a highway without a significant, substantial investment.
Remind me, and probably us, why this got brought up in the first place.
So this was brought up because when in March and July of 2021, we held a series of zoning workshops where we're looking to update our zoning ordinances to correct some vague terms, address some areas of policy regarding RV parks and like.
Mhm.
And then we also looked at creating possible map changes regarding how we use our mixed use zone. It had been used instead of mixed use, it was multi-use, which meant free for all.
Mhm.
I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek on that, but it's essentially how it was viewed. And city council at that time in those workshops was presented with the idea of converting a lot of the mixed use along Highway 80 into a commercial use. And there's a broad support for that idea. That zoning change at that time never happened. We've received inquiries regarding properties that are within this mixed use zone that would otherwise necessitate a zoning change request by that property owner.
Right.
Well, if the city council was already considering that zoning change on its own, rather than doing a spot zoning change for
Right.
just a single property, maybe while the rest of that zoning ordinance still goes through its revisions, we could address this one aspect now and allow that project to continue to proceed with their proposed development.
I think I agree with Mike, is I don't like having the idea of an oiled tube spot right there, next to the river. I don't know what the feet, I mean, he says 300 feet from the middle of
That was
Highway 80 to that line or that,
yeah,
so, I mean, it's
roughly,
less-
roughly.
it's about 300 feet to the river from that side. So about,
Possibly, yeah.
I mean, a lot shorter at some points. So being able to have,
And you got residential right close by.
Some of that rainwater that runs off in those streets, the low water areas.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Is there a way that we could? I mean, I know there is a way.
But
What
like
is the
Jared
process?
said, once you can change it to commercial right now, if that's what the city council chooses.
Right.
But you would get another opportunity on a specific business
Sure.
once they bring the plan to
That's also
us.
depending on who's in city council.
You thought what?
Yeah,
That's also depending on who's in city council at the
yeah.
time.
So if you're looking at
Well, that's the ordinance. though.
the
They'd have
river
to
Sure,
get
they'd have to come here.
from, yeah, it's about 350 feet maybe from Northwest River Road.
It's a good eye.
Actually gets closer when you get.
Yeah, we might be able to get over here
I mean, Google Maps is
to
crazy.
there.
Yeah, it's way too close.
168.
So is there a way we can go ahead and change?
But I think that's more of a commercial type building. Now it's decrepit,
Yeah, it is.
but there's more of a commercial industrial type building that's there now.
I don't know if we can, I don't think it's morally right to keep commercial right there. I just don't, it's just too close. Unless it's, I think it needs to be specifically to one business. If they want to switch it over, then they come in here and they gotta persuade us.
Do a variance or a spot permit, a
Specific
change, a
use.
specific use permit in the mixed use zone. Because even as you're saying, I think that that's true, that it is close to the river, but I still think that with it being mixed use, that you could have apartments there. I mean, we don't have many apartments at all in this city. We don't have any new residential, I mean.
I didn't say I was against apartments. I didn't say that.
No, but
I
I'm
have no
saying if
problem.
it was mixed use, if it stayed as mixed use,
They could ask
then
for a
we could
variance.
more feasibly have,
I just don't like the idea
Apartments
of
there.
having anything with the idea of having any runoff like that.
That was given as an example. I'm just saying.
You're right, though. I mean,
But I'm just saying, I don't have a problem with apartments or something like that, but I do have a problem with paints and fuels and stuff like that. I really have a problem with that. And I think having a mixed use, just an extra step they have to go through, a spot change, spot zone change. That's just my personal opinion, but
So the only thing allowed in mixed use is single family detached, and then multifamily, they would need a specific use permit. Is there any other lines beneath multifamily? Bed and breakfast, group home, boarding house, lost apartments. See, you could have apartments above a business there in mixed use.
Yeah.
Or single family homes.
It doesn't eliminate it, it just, like you said, just makes them come before you.
Yeah.
It
I
just
think,
said, or if
I think
not-
it's important if it's close enough to the river.
Well,
I mean,
and really what you're proposing to do here is to change it to commercial.
Mhm.
That could be any business.
well,
But
that's what we saw.
for a gas station, they still have to come and get a specific use permit. So there is another
Step.
area.
There's
So it
another-
just depends
It
on.
just makes it one less step, basically.
Yeah, so right now, just, you know.
It would
depending on the
permit,
business.
the only thing I would add is it would allow a minor oil change facility,
Yeah.
like a Valvoline or
Something.
Take
like
Five
that.
or something like that to come in without
Paint shop,
any.
too. Oh, no,
No,
it's special.
the paints and things would require special permit.
Lube
The
oil
only thing,
change
you could have a
and permits.
AutoZone, O'Reilly's kind of thing, and then a Take Five or Valvoline, and that's the extent of your automotive related businesses that could operate without additional permitting requirements.
But don't oils and gases need to be disposed of properly?
Yeah,
Yes.
I would imagine that if there's a business operating, that they would have the requisite certificates and everything to do that.
We've all been to an oil change spot though. You know how that looks.
Some are nicer than others.
We know how that
Would
looks.
the
We don't need to take action on this tonight, do we?
Or you can make a motion to not change the map.
We could table it for another time for further discussion.
If I may, it'd be more advantageous to those who are inquiring about property in that area if the city would be able to tell them, go this route or go this route.
Right.
Telling them that we kick the can. I can deliver that message. They're just not going to be happy with it. So if the city council wants to take a vote on it tonight to approve it, disapprove it, that would be preferable than tabling it. But if there's a desire to table it, then that's fine.
All right, what about an option where the homeowner comes up and tries to get a zoning change just for their property? That just too
that's-
problematic?
No, that would be, they could do that today, tomorrow. This was an opportunity to bring forward a conversation the city council previously had, in the hope of creating some efficiencies in our providing services, in administration. But no one's twisting city council's arm to do
Sure,
this.
sure.
Uh,
I think we're just trying to avoid work, really, when it comes down to it. Because it seems like you said we had a number of inquiries, so it sounds like we're gonna have to have, sounds like a lot of paperwork, but
The zoning change would require paperwork
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah.
It would just, by doing this change, it would open up those areas for more robust commercial development.
One question, why do we want more robust commercial development in there? It's smart, let's keep it small in a nice residential area, not growing like San Marcos or even Maxwell's getting pretty ghetto with all those industrial areas and Blue Bonnet and everything like that over there. Let's keep Martindale just a great family place to be.
Only thing it would do, it would increase our sales tax base and our property tax revenue per se, perhaps.
that's a big part of this, yeah.
I mean, that would be it, to have more sales tax, but either way, if we keep it mixed use, they would have to get a specific use permit. But also if it's commercial,
They'd have to.
they'd have to do it anyway in both cases.
If it's state mixed use, any automotive, they would have to request a variance, and right now, which is follows the same procedures as a specific use permit, but the variance is very limiting in terms of what they're applying on the basis of. Typically, a variance is going to be where something out of the landowner's, property owner's control necessitates that a setback needs to be changed because of the way that the lot was platted way back when. Typically, an economic only type of variance request could be considered by city council, but it's not one of the intended uses of a variance process. City council, acting as a planning and zoning commission or board of adjustments, can override itself or override the ordinances in some ways to grant special exceptions, like was done with the drive-through window. And that something like that could also take place that followed a variance process without going through a zoning change, because that was another area where.
Could you just show then on the map, like pull it up more and show us how much the potential of commercial C1 then that we would have remaining? If we made it mix, if we kept that mixed use, I mean, going towards town?
Yeah, so this is where it is now. That's the current or the proposed. The rest of the commercial district goes nearly to the intersection of 142 Lockhart Street.
That's all commercial.
I can interject for a second.
Yeah.
You mind making Candace a co-host? He might have had something to say
Oh.
in this conversation. He usually would chime in. He is on Zoom.
Who is?
Our attorney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we need our attorney.
Dorothy Joe, would you like to say?
Let the attorney speak, and then I have just an opinion.
He might have a comment.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I'm confused.
I'm not commenting. There are some residential areas on Highway 80, North Highway 80, there between Thomas Drive and Ladybird Lane. Even there along Ladybird Lane, that's residential. You don't change that to commercial.
No, we're not talking about that side at all. We're only talking about the river side of Highway 80.
Okay, well, anyway, my basic question is anything that's currently residential. If y'all change it to commercial, that's going to affect the property taxes horribly. Are you gonna notify the property owners? especially
Yes, there is a process. We have to let them all know that if the city council
Okay, so
wishes to
somebody's been
change it.
here 50 years, 25 years, whatever, then all of a sudden they're gonna get zapped with more. property.
Well, before it could be changed, we do have a public hearing and they would get to come and have a say.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
that
It
the appraisal
changes.
district would change the way that they value the property, because the property at that point would still be used as a
Commercial
residence.
goes up big.
Maybe if it's vacant land, it would have an effect, but if it's used, I don't know, I'm getting way beyond my depth on there, but at any rate, every property owner within that area, plus those within 200 feet, we get a specific piece of mail from the city.
Okay, Dorothy Joe, did you have a comment?
As a citizen looking at that, my fear is all of that green is going to be concrete one day. Just all concrete. And the flood hits and all that water comes off that concrete and it's just gonna make all those houses that are on that south side.
And all that oil
It's gonna
coming in the
destroy
river.
them more. And it's not even the environmental aspect of it. I'm just thinking of basic, the water. That's my house.
The water,
The water line.
impervious cover.
Yes, thank you.
Post. Have it all concrete.
Can't, where's Bud? Bud needs to.
All concrete.
Yeah, you do have building
Hey,
ordinance.
But yeah,
Yeah,
you have
more.
something, you should be able to unmute yourself.
He's been nice twice already. But he hasn't.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Uh, Does the commercial include RV parks?
No.
Okay.
look, no way.
Are we waiting on Kent?
Yeah, here we go. Hey, Bud, you want to put on your speaker? I'm trying to, you should be co-hosted.
Yeah.
So Mike, that does still permit the lube oil change
In commercial.
in commercial, but in all the other ones, it doesn't.
All right, I'll put you on speaker.
Washington permits.
All right, go ahead, Ken.
Okay, so I heard questions about flooding and I heard questions about oil. Were there any more issues?
Mm-mm.
No,
Impervious ground cover.
oh, taxes, yeah.
We're just saying that the river authority should be bringing that up.
Okay, so one of the things, let's say there was a commercial development that was proposed. They would be required to provide an engineering report showing that that the development of the property would not divert or impound the flow of water so as to cause damage. I mean, it's that same standard that we've discussed on other occasions before, but they have to, as part of required engineering, provide that analysis. On disposing of oil, there's actually I've worked on not extensively, but what's known as Superfund litigation, and it's federal law that very strictly and rigidly dictates how oil is disposed of for those types of facilities. And so, I mean, I don't see if we had some type of a lube shop that was within the city limits, that it would present a real issue, because that is such a heavily regulated industry that anymore I mean, if you improperly dispose of oil, there are excessive fines. I mean, and I say excessive in the sense that more than you would imagine, but under federal law, people that disposed of oil back in the 80s and 90s, they disposed of it under the proper standards at the time, can still to this day be sued and made to contribute to the cleanup efforts. So I think what we're probably envisioning is something of the past, but very strictly regulated. And then, Mayor, you said something about taxes.
Yeah, somebody brought up taxes.
Commercial versus residential property taxes.
Well, yeah, I mean, so what that opens up the door to is the possibility that we would increase revenue because, one, there would potentially be a sales tax base that is not presently there, and two, there would be a number of properties that would no longer have potentially either an agricultural and or a homestead exemption, and without those exemptions, the possibility of the appraised value increasing more on an annual basis certainly exists. So those are two ways that the city could see increased revenue because of this. Although it would probably take some period of time, a number of years, for that to actually be realized.
But there wouldn't be a quick snap of the finger, your R1 to a C1, your appraisal skyrockets because of its commercial.
Well, I mean, it all depends. I mean, we cannot simply by changing the zoning classification force people to change the present and existing use of their property immediately. So, like I said, if there's a number of properties that take advantage of homestead and agricultural exemptions, then no. But then let's say those, and I haven't looked at these properties, but let's say if someone says, well, great, this is zoned commercial now, I'm going to sell this property for commercial use to company A. And when company A buys the property, if those exemptions are removed and the actual appraised value is realized, then it is possible that there could be on some of those properties a substantial increase in the tax that the property owner pays. But again, in isolation, that's probably not going to bring an excessive amount of revenue. But over time, this happens with enough properties, and then businesses begin to operate. It could be the basis for a substantial increase in the city's tax revenue.
Yeah, I think we're talking more along the lines of the residential side of things.
Yeah, a snap change, overnight change.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I put up on the screen the flood map. So the area that we're under consideration, you see Northwest River Road kind of in a bright white. To the south of Highway 80 is more of a dark gray. And the area that we're looking at rezoning is the stretch of mostly green between those two roads, down to about where the bottom of the map ends is where that is kind of where that property line is. So the vast majority of this is outside of the flood hazard areas, except for a little bit near the Indian Court neighborhood across Highway 80 from.
Well, then I guess the other thing is to the flooding issue. And I don't have cataloged if the city does this, but we can impose impervious cover requirements for development if that is.
It's 70% for commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that can be that amount can be reduced if there's a concern that the density of development would present a problem.
Yeah.
Right on. It sounds like a lot of barriers.
So the blue or the greenish blue is the 100-year floodplain?
Yeah, so this hatch mark is the floodway. The bluish color is a 100-year floodplain, and the orange is the 200.
So part of it, the little blue up area is the 100-year floodplain in the commercial zone.
What's currently zoned mixed use, but proposed to be commercial, yes.
Yeah, which means that area is kind of off limits for especially commercial. Like getting insurance on that, it's not going to be a possibility. Cool.
Is this the 2020 flood map?
Yeah, this is the current active flood map from FEMA.
That's the one that's online.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what I didn't realize. A lot of things that I've been referring to is the 2017 flood map, but now I realize there is a new 2020 flood map. Okay, so this is the 2020 map, which is different from the 2017 map.
Oh, yeah. Cool. I mean, after Kent clarifying, then looking at this, and then understanding it a little bit better, I really don't. I feel comfortable making the change, but it really doesn't matter if we all. I know Mike probably doesn't feel comfortable with it still.
I say,
Okay, let's review again about what started this change. As far as streamlining business for the city.
Yeah, so when we initially began our zoning reviews and workshops, the one of the things I was looking at and brought to council is we use the mixed use zoning district in a way that doesn't really match with what's commonly recognized planning standards. So a mixed use zoning district is kind of like a town center, if you will. So like, and so it's somewhat older example, but like the square in San Marcos is kind of a mixed use district. You'll have plenty of mixed use districts in newer sections of, say, Austin or San Antonio that have gone under development, where there's a mix of, you know, office buildings, you know, medical facilities, that type of thing, outpatient clinics, retail shopping, apartments, all within, you know, the same city block. That is, you know, mixed use. And so when I was looking at our map and how we're using our zoning, something that was sandwiched between Northwest Road and Highway 80 didn't to me seem to lend itself well to a pedestrian friendly environment, which mixed use is one of the hallmarks of a mixed use district, especially where it's on both sides of a very busy state highway. So in my mind, I thought it would be better to change what's along the highway into what either exists today, which is a mix of residentials and things, or to change it where mixed use and it's vacant land, especially change that into commercial, because that seems like the most economically viable use of that space. You're not going to have somebody wanting to put down a single residential family home right on Highway 80, at least without, you know, unless it's a very large plot and they can set it back in a good ways. Especially in this area, it gets real skinny. And so that to me didn't really seem to work well. We've had a number of inquiries. We had the food truck, you know, scenic corridor review. That would have been, in some ways, might have been easier to wade through if it was already zoned commercial. As we look towards people requesting automotive use, commercial use, which is explicitly not allowed in a mixed use district. To me, Highway 80 seems to be a logical place to put these things. And we already reviewed this idea and was received favorably in a workshop. No change or action was made to initiate zoning change. So when we got additional inquiries in, it's like, well, let's bring this back forward, see if we're still interested. There's been some movement in city council. Are we still thinking this is a good idea or not? The last city council meeting said, all right, let at least go get the map, bring it back, and we'll decide if we want to go forward. So that's to answer your question in a long-winded way, Jan. This is how we got to where we're at, is those series of events, and this is the map that we developed for city council for your consideration.
Yes, for some reason I thought we had already voted that we were going to go ahead and go forward with this. Now, what the next thing we still have to do is take it out to the public, to the people, the neighbors, the letters. We have to publicize it in newspapers, and then we can probably get more comments and opinions from the public, which will also help us with this decision.
Yes, you're right.
I'm all for going forward with this.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's like what you said, is the most efficient use of that land, since it is on Highway 80 and there's a lot of vacancies on that area, so people could actually the city could make some money off of it. And if there's any objections, we'll hear about it. So,
Right,
I'll go
and
with
we can always take it off the table if we're getting,
Yeah.
you know, too much dissension on our decision. So I say let's move forward. Let's see what the public has to say and go from there. You know, one step at a time.
So Jan, the motion I'd be looking for then is to accept the proposed zoning map change and initiate the zoning change request on behalf of the city.
Before I'd like to make the motion, but before I do that, we are missing a council member. If the rest of the council would prefer to wait until we get a full, get our full members here, we can do that too. Ideas, opinions?
I'm good with making the motion.
Okay, let's see how it pans out. You want to go ahead and make that one, make the motion? Or do you want me
Sure.
to?
Either way, you can make the motion to approve the proposed City of Martindale zoning map and change and approve,
Initiate zoning change.
initiate the zoning change process.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Beat that one, Dave.
Okay, so Nick made the motion, Jan seconded it. Mike, how do you vote?
No.
And Sam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries.
Y'all gonna have a public hearing.
Yes. I think we
two.
might have two even. I'll have to check, but there'll
Yeah.
definitely be public hearing.
There are two.
All right.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next item, which deals with the 2022 special election. 4.1 ordinance ordering the 2022 special election. And so that ordinance is in your packet.
If I speak a little bit on that, I'm just
Yeah.
looking for an ordinance. Well, City Council to approve the ordinance ordering the 2022 special election to reinstate the sales tax. This is already brought to me before, so you could have revised it and made it public. And so this is the ordinance, and below on the second half of the page is the contract with the joint election with Ottawa County's administrator, elections administrator, Dr. Daniel Kimber. If there's any questions about the contract and agreement. feel free to
So
ask.
this is a quarter sales tax, 1/4 sales tax, and it brings in about $24,000 a year to repair the roads. It has to be just to repair roads.
Can't go to our city administrator.
No,
What?
is a restricted fund use.
Restricted fund, yes.
So we need to,
Make a motion to first accept the ordinance, or can we do both at the same time?
I'd do it in sequence.
Okay.
Approve the ordinance and then after that, approve the joint election agreement.
Approving the ordinance also is affirming that we will go by that schedule and that page 4 of the ordinance and showing the hours and whatnot.
I'll make a motion. Put it up to the top there so I can read it. I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance of the city council of the city of Martindale ordering a special election on November 8th, 2022 for a binding proposition. 1, on the reauthorization of a local sales tax and use tax of the city of Martindale at the rate of 1/4% to to provide revenue for maintenance and repair of municipal streets.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Okay, since Mike made the motion, Sam, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Nick said, okay, so the motion carries. Okay, so the second item would be review the joint election agreement with the Caldwell County Election Office.
And again, here's, we're seeking approval also to enter into this agreement.
I make a motion that we approve the review of the joint election agreement with Caldwell County Election Office.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on it? Okay, hearing none. Jan made the motion. Nick, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mike seconded it. So Sam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion carries. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 5, the 2022 budget adjustments. This deals with the police vehicle repair costs.
Yeah, so we've previously requested city council's approval to adjust our prior budget from $1,000 to $4,000 for pending repairs. Unfortunately, the repair cost to the 2017 Ford Explorer patrol vehicle has exceeded that $4,000 mark, and I think we're closing in on 5. And I don't know if Tommy, if you want to provide any additional color to that, but where we're at.
I can tell you what happened. So far, the water pump went out, and now the electrical system went out due to the water pump. So they're trying to repair all that. I found today that there was a recall from Ford on that. So I brought it to their attention and said, hey, I didn't even look at this recall. This recall is for the electrical system. So hopefully, we're in negotiations. I was going to talk to Kent, but Kent's not here, so they may have to use him for some negotiations as well.
There we go.
Hey, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there a warranty? And we were spending,
That's what.
if we're spending all this kind of money, we're gonna 90-day or?
Well, that's what I don't know right now. So right now, we need to get the vehicle out. We don't have
Gotcha.
the vehicle,
Okay.
Right. But secondly, I'll talk to Ford and say, hey, look, here's the deal. I found this recall on this electrical system for that. And y'all didn't even look at that when we first brought the vehicle in. That should have been like the first thing, to me, that would have been the first thing I would looked at. Hey, you have a overheating problem. Let's look at what the recall is and see what it is. But they told us it's a water pump. And then we get it out.
It might not have been the water pump. It could have just been faulty electronic sensors.
It could have been.
This is the dealership, though.
Yes, sir.
Well, except that there was water
Which one?
leaking.
The
Lockhart? Huh? No,
Okay.
Griffith. Makes sense.
So is this the vehicle we just purchased or the one we had prior to that?
Prior to that, so it's a
We
good
have
thing
a
we
Ford
purchased.
Explorer and a Tahoe.
Yeah, so it's a good thing we purchased another vehicle.
Yeah. You'd be out there walking.
We always go.
Yeah, we got bike patrol.
We always need to go. to
Get
Lockhart.
run over on 80.
So the expenses so far has been in excess of 4,000. I think you mentioned 4,000.
Right now, if we go, it's 4,900 for the water pump in that system. And then if we go beyond that to what we got now, it's another 900. And now the electrical part.
Oh, Lord.
So I don't know where we're at.
What is the thing worth? Man, hey.
Well, it's probably worth more than that still. We can't, it's
Probably.
we can't replace
See,
it for that.
I know. It just seemed like you'd get better service out of a dealership, usually pay top dollar, but nothing we can do about that. So,
They sort of got us over a barrel right now.
Yeah, you're right.
It was broke down, we had to get it towed somewhere.
yeah, you got it.
And then so they sort of got us over a barrel right now so we can get it fixed. And then-
So what are we proposing? How much more?
What do you think we're going to be? So if we're- take it all the way up to 6,500 for total repair costs on that budget line item.
It's coming straight out of Parks.
But I'm hoping we can get that. In my negotiation with them started today, I'm hoping, once I found that recall, I brought it to their attention and I got crickets after that.
Yeah, I bet.
You may go at 60 a day. I'll help you out.
Yeah,
So that is 12,000 plus the additional 6,500?
No, I'm sorry. So the original budget had us at 1,000 for repairs on our vehicles. We want to increase that to now be 6,500 as the total budget line item for vehicle repair.
I thought it was 4,000.
We went from 1 to 4.
Oh,
And
1 to 4.
I want to take it from 4 to 6.5.
And that's coming out of the election money or?
It's going to be coming out of other surplus funds within the general fund.
Are these restricted surplus funds that, or would they be allocated to the budget in the next fiscal year? If
We only do annual appropriations, so wouldn't roll over other than as part of a general fund balance. And we carry a fairly significant balance in our general fund to help out with cash flow issues, especially in the first quarter of the year until we start getting property taxes. But other than that,
I make a motion to accept the increase of $6,500 to repair the Ford Explorer.
No,
Do we have a
no,
motion?
that's
Do we have-
to- Now, wait a minute, this motion should be to increase the budget, correct?
yes,
The
it's
budget on,
to increase the vehicle repair budget
Increase the,
to 6,500.
make a motion to increase the vehicle budget to $6,500 to repair the 2017 Ford Explorer.
second the motion.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Sam, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Jan, how do you vote?
Yay.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, the next item is the golf cart ordinance.
Yeah, so this is one that was brought forward by Councilmember Villalobos roughly a year ago. And then we brought it back to council a few months after that over the winter. And it's been kind of on our back plate, waiting for an opportunity to get onto an agenda. But this ordinance, what it does is it adopts the City of Texas Transportation Code dealing with the use of golf carts on public roadways. It almost word for word adopts that language into our city ordinances, and adds a few minor requirements, such as a slow-moving vehicle emblem located at the rear of the vehicle. What this would do is the ordinance itself sets out the definitions for how this is applied, and then it limits where golf carts are able to be operated. So on roads, about to turn off. On roads that are operated at 35 miles an hour or less. Yep, that did it. It must have a valid driver's license, and the person complies with all operating ordinances, laws. The golf cart itself must have headlamps, tail lamps, turn signals, side reflectors, and mirrors. So moving vehicle emblem. Mike McLeod, you offered some comments previously regarding, only making headlamps, tail lamps required in the evening. However, the Texas code on this doesn't discriminate between daylight hours or evening hours at the state law. So I don't think we would have the ability to discriminate at our level between the two.
Is there anything about age of driving?
Yeah, so you would have to be operated by someone with a driver's license or a learner's permit. So and the driver's license is authorized by a state.
Who enforces the problems if?
The police. So this would be going part of their traffic enforcement.
So no one younger than 6 years old can be in the vehicle?
No, they have to be restrained.
What is this, no
Yeah.
younger person than 6?
No one
They have to have a seatbelt.
Could you move that one line up a little bit, about 6 years old?
I don't see it.
Where is it at?
There you go, right there it is.
You probably see it. No person younger than
Must
6.
be probably Cedar.
unless retrained.
I think that's
Restrained.
what it refers to, like when they're sitting on the back of.
Retrained.
Yeah, restrained by
No
state.
younger, no person younger than 6 years of age may be transported in a motorized cart unless restrained by safety belt restraint.
I wonder if the back seats in the golf cart have, well, they're gonna have to have seat belts in the back seats.
Basically, no.
Huh? Well, they're gonna have to now.
Now, wait a minute. Yeah, aren't these laws already in effect with Texas?
Yeah,
They're,
This really
they're
necessary?
partially in effect, but they're allowed under state law, but they only, some things automatically take effect, but this is one of those laws that a municipality has the option of adopting it.
Okay.
And do we really have that bad of a golf cart problem that we have to do this?
There's quite a few of them.
Ordinance. I think we can wait on activate.
I don't know if it's a problem, but it is making it expressly legal is more of my understanding, as opposed to, I don't think there's an effort to regulate what anyone's doing, but this is more to say you can drive your golf cart on these particular city roads. And if I'm wrong on that, Jared, correct me.
No, you're right. You can drive your golf cart on these roads. However, it has to be in a good working order. And that has some requirements regarding headlamps, taillights, visible turn signals, and mirrors, and a slow moving vehicle emblem located like a reflective triangle on the back of the.
What about registration? About registering it, is it an annual thing or?
I don't think there's
Golf
any
carts.
registration requirement. It's
There's not
just,
a registration requirement, but like, the city of Rockville, for example, requires you to register with the city and they charge a fee and you get access.
There you go.
we're not doing that here.
It
I'm just saying.
sounds great.
Yeah, yeah.
Ken, I got a question for you. Ken,
Yes.
if we say we did have this ordinance and then heaven forbid somebody gets injured or hurt seriously in a golf cart on our city streets, could we be held liable since we did?
No.
Huh?
No, we couldn't.
Okay.
Chief Ward, I have a question. Are you seeing any big problems with golf carts in our city?
We have quite a few, and when on the weekends and stuff, we have people driving them around. I mean, I don't see a big problem, but I see there are numerous. I saw probably 10, 15 this weekend.
Oh, really?
Well, this was also a very busy weekend too.
Oh,
But they're here.
And most golf carts don't have turn signals, says Joy Youngers.
I don't think they're required to have turn signals. They still use their arm signals, hand arm signals.
This ordinance would require the turn signal.
Does it require turn signals?
This ordinance would.
I think this needs to be.
Yes, it does. I think it's redundant, this ordinance.
How about if we could can we change it and have hand signals instead of blinkers?
We already can do that by Texas state law.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I mean. Boy,
More paper.
What is
staff
the-
review. I'm not for this.
What's the speed limit on Skull Road?
Jan, do you have a golf cart, Jan?
No,
You sure?
I see her drive one.
I drive one around and I can.
She drives David around.
I get it. We all understand now, Dan.
I think an ordinance would be,
I'd get
I
one
think
if I could.
What color's your golf cart, Dan?
I don't have one.
That's a quick question. Yes, it has to be the speed limit under 35.
They can only go on roads.
35. Where in the city is it more than 35?
You would not be able to cross
Highway.
Highway 80, 1979, or, well, I guess that's really it.
Yeah, okay, that's
Can't go to Dollar General. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
There's a good shoulder there.
That's what I'm saying.
So-
At least
so-
half
so-
I mean, I guess my question is, what
Most people don't.
typically,
We could remove the turn signal requirement, it looks like.
yeah,
I was using a model ordinance from another city. I think Lockhart was using the turn signal. I don't see anything here at the state law that required that. So if that's something that we wanted to omit from our ordinance, we could.
I think that's fair. Cause you don't see a lot of.
yeah, where do they come with? What is it when you buy a golf cart? What does it come with typically?
It's okay.
Above my pay grade, man.
I mean, we need to have I think hand signals would be sufficient.
I think I need a ride. Dan.
Sam, you concur with removing the turn signal?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're gonna enforce within the city limits?
Anything else you recommend?
This is within the city limits then?
Yes, only within the city limits.
So it wouldn't apply to people, say, in San Marcos River Ranch that would come on Skull Road?
They're operating
On our street.
on our streets.
There's a lot of them coming from there.
Yeah, they come from down there. I can't force them.
No.
Possibility in the city,
Yeah.
so then-
That's a dangerous road, whatever.
So on Northwest River Road, it is 35 miles per hour from the Skull Bridge
Yep.
there?
Yep.
30 to 25.
25.
Okay, so all accessible points other than 80 and 1979, those are the only two parts.
Confirmed.
So nobody from, say, Southeast River Road could cross over 1979, no one from 80, from Hobson Ranch or any of that, so.
Legally.
That's
Just with-
Texas law.
What was that, Jan?
That's the Texas law that you can't.
Okay.
I still think this is a redundant ordinance. It's already on the books for Texas. This is, to me, it's, redundant and added work for our city staff.
But it makes the streets safer within our city.
Does it?
They can cross.
Have you been run over by a golf cart?
No. What were you saying?
know of anybody who has?
Yeah.
They could cross that intersection, okay. You could cross at an intersection point, but you would not be able to travel down a road. So, so if you're on Crockett Street, you could, at an intersection, you could cross over 1979, but you would not be able to drive on 1979.
So from, say, Fannin to get to the park, you could cross over in 1979 and get to the park.
Yes. At an intersection. That's good. Thanks, Chief.
Oh, I see right there.
Chief, are you for or against something like this?
Again, that law is already in place.
It makes sense.
Does make sense. There's a lot of kids and stuff almost like to take the,
And if you go over to like, Buckwater Meadows or Hobson Ranch, there's a lot of people that have them that drive around the subdivision.
Yeah, sure.
There's more than just here in town.
Yeah.
They have them all in the streets.
Good to have some kind of ordinance.
you said Lockhart has it, right, Jared?
That was Lockhart's.
Yeah,
They had the turn signals on there or?
yeah.
I think
That's where I use this as an example.
So nobody from Hobson Ranch or Skyview or Ladybug could come over because there's not an intersection there. There's just the highway. So they couldn't go across the highway because there's no intersection.
correct?
I haven't ever seen anybody drive a golf cart.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, I'm just trying to know what it means. An intersection is an intersection.
Let's make this
So,
motion happen.
yeah, so the model ordinance that we use discussed an intersection controlled by traffic control devices that stops all traffic. That goes above and beyond the state requirement, where they just mention an intersection. So we could be less prescriptive on that.
I think this is safer and better to have that where it says it's controlled by a traffic control device.
Yeah, because then they couldn't cross it properly.
Then we wouldn't be able to cross a Crockett exam.
Oh.
Yeah, stop sign.
Well, then they couldn't cross in 1979 at anywhere.
Sorry.
That's when I'll put stop signs.
Oh, okay.
We should have crossed.
Outstanding. But, yeah, I think spring's fun. I'll make a motion to accept the proposed golf cart ordinance. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Make a motion. To accept an ordinance of the city council of the city of Martindale, Texas, adding a new chapter 74, golf carts, to Title 7, traffic code of the Code of Ordinances, providing for the operation of golf carts on certain roadways within the city and providing for publication and an effective date.
Okay, we have an ordinance. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Yes, so we're taking out the blinkers.
Yes.
What else, anything else we're taking out, changing?
That was the only change.
That was the only change, so we're requiring tail lamp, headlights, and a parking brake.
Those come with it.
That comes with it. Okay,
Okay, so Nick made the motion and Sam seconded it. So how do you vote?
yes.
And Jan, how do you vote?
Hey,
Okay, so the motion carries.
Said no from afar.
still very redundant.
Well, you win some, you lose some, Jay.
No,
Dan?
we're overworking our staff. It's
Well, you-
unnecessary.
That's democracy, Jan. I mean, you lose them, you win them.
Staff is sitting here saying he likes it.
You lost. I lost my previous one, so that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Go on to the next one.
Okay, we're gonna go on to number 7. Can ban enforcement. 7.1, consider River Advisory Board recommendation to report the number of disposable container ban infractions monthly. If you notice from the last police report and the June report, he did that.
Yeah, I know, I brought that to
And
our
then,
council's secretary today about that, so yeah, we appreciate that.
and then in the one he's going to present at the next meeting, it also has that on there. So,
So we're already doing it.
I'm for it.
so we're already doing
Yes.
that. So I don't know, do we have to have any
I
kind
think
of motion or
We should
anything?
table that.
This discussion or action. So you want to just discuss it, move on.
Move on.
I think-
Okay.
come on.
Move on then.
Okay.
So, future agenda items, does anybody have anything to add to the list? I have something, we wanted to schedule a workshop on Monday at 1:00.
For,
Jared, what do you think?
Or,
For the river protection ordinance and tree and brush removal ordinance?
is that the
what
one
you're
for the, that's that for the change in the floodway? The same one?
Is that the same one, Adrian?
Sorry, what was the question?
We wanted to have a workshop on Monday. What was that for?
That was to discuss the proposal that the River Advisory Board.
Yeah,
was
that's-
sent
it is.
about 2 meetings ago.
Was that the river protection ordinance?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yep.
what time Monday
1 p.m.
This Monday coming up? Okay,
What
What
time?
1 PM,
1 PM.
okay?
Does that
So,
sound okay, Jared?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
So
I have a hard stop at 4:30, but
Yeah.
that should be enough.
so we have
You
some,
haven't been to our workshop.
You have not.
You gotta work on it.
Yeah, I wish I can be there.
Spirit only?
Is there another workshop going on that day? Or
No.
that's the only one?
I'd rather be doing that than working, honestly, but
Yeah, this doesn't pay, dude.
I don't know.
So is there anything
Got a
else
lot
to
of
add,
taxes going my way.
to add to this list?
so we only have to have that posted, we have to have it posted by 1 PM tomorrow in order to have the workshop on Monday,
Or 1 PM Saturday?
Saturday to Sunday.
If I'm thinking about it right, yeah.
Saturday to
Oh,
Sunday.
no, it
No,
is
it'd have to be
tomorrow.
Friday.
Tomorrow by 1, you're right.
This is for Monday, this Monday coming up,
Right,
right?
we'd have to have it posted by 1 o'clock.
48 hours,
72 hours.
72 hours. Tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, I mean, do you want to put anything else on the
I think-
agenda?
I think we have enough for now.
I didn't hear anybody say anything, so I was moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Under the rug.
Well, you can add something if you want. But
Do you need it on Monday?
No,
I didn't figure, but I wanted to make sure.
Unless you want to be, you can.
it's gonna be a riveting experience.
Well, I mean, that's what I'd call par for the course in Martindale, Texas.
You got the river people coming,
No, it's
river people.
It's good policy. If you want to see local policy making, come on.
Got the river rats
Did
coming out.
did you say riveting or riverting?
Exactly.
That's right. That was for you, Mike.
All right, the river rats will be coming out of the river to come get you.
River King.
I resemble that remark.
okay, I second the adjournment motion.
Nobody made one.
He read it. You're at home, Jan. I'll make a
I
motion.
make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, Mike made the motion, Jan seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Carries, there we go.